Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the InnerFight podcast. I hope you've had an awesome week and hope you're ready for a show that I believe you will take a lot from and hopefully, as the title suggests, might make you a little bit stronger. This week, I'm joined by a voice you've heard before and a voice that has just joined our coaching team. Andy, who has spoken quite a lot on the podcast, joins me and also our new coach, Toby, who splatters us with what he will learn at uni or what he Googled or what he chat GPT'd for this show. No matter what it is all super useful. These guys are incredibly strong, as you will find out, because both of them show off their numbers and embarrass me quite heavily. They know all about strength training. They know about different strength training protocols. And most importantly, they know the impact of strength training on life for us currently, and also, as they both talk about, in our later years. Super interesting, super informative, and they're two pretty nice guys. So it's definitely worth a listen. This week's show announcements. First up, a massive thank you to everyone who came to Final Fridays last Friday and celebrated with us 3 years here at Olivara Residence in Studio City. If you haven't yet been here, you need to come and pay us a visit. We have a cafe upstairs. You can come. You don't have to do a workout. We can have a coffee together to start, and then later we'll do a workout. Thank you so much to everyone who showed up and for all of the messages for the people that couldn't. If you're here, you know, it was a pretty good workout. It was a super fun workout, and we look forward to many more. For those of you that are interested in trail running, our trail running club launches this weekend, Saturday morning, just after 5 a.m. out in Shoka. If you want to get involved, rj@innerfight.com. If you're listening to the show and Saturday has already passed, still send Rob an email and he will tell you all about Trail Running Club, what it does, when it meets, and if it's something for you or not. If you want to find out about any other events that we are hosting here at the gym, or we are taking people to, we're taking people overseas to events, both running events, triathlons, some CrossFit events, different fitness events. There's all sorts going on. Head over to the website, innerfight.com, go to the events section. Everything is listed there rather than me reeling them all off on here. That's the announcements for this week. Let's jump into this week's show. This is episode number 836 of the InnerFight podcast. Strength with Andy and Toby. No matter where you are in the world, thanks a lot for tuning in. Let's get into today's show. Welcome back to another episode of the show. Everyone wants to get stronger, but first off, everyone wants to know who is the new face in the room. Andy, do you know him?
A little bit about him.
What's the story, mate?
He seems to be pretty good at CrossFit.
What's that?
Is that an excuse for people who haven't made it in other sports?
Oh! Here we go, Toby. That's a bit harsh, isn't it? Have you upset Andy in the last few weeks?
Maybe. I mean, there is a spectrum, though. He's definitely right. It's either you succeed at sport, you succeed at CrossFit, and if you can't succeed at both, you then do Hyrox. So,
what?
We'll see.
Proudly said, just the day after we're recording, a couple of days after, our very own Jess Toll came third in Hyrox. Guys, we've got to hand it to her. That was pretty good.
Yeah, mate, I was there. And Jess, being Jess, doesn't train for it.
Yeah.
And she goes out and absolutely nails the event. It's epic watching the two girls who beat her and just like how fast they're running.
Yeah.
But you could see where, I mean, it's going to touch on what we're talking about here. Jess was playing a bit of catch up on things that require a bit of strength.
Yeah.
But she, like I said, did no training, and she's gone there and placed third, and then placed first in the age group. And I think next June she gets to go to the World Finals.
Wow. Hopefully she doesn't want any time off work for that. Anyway, so Toby, no interest in Hyrox, mate?
No, I think it's great. I think what they've done is good for the sport.
Cool.
Yeah, it's awesome that there's in CrossFit, you kind of get caught up in the higher skill stuff. In the sense of you can't push the pace too much without having to fall short on that higher skill stuff. So Hyrox kind of eliminated that skill barrier. And some of the athletes you get there are just so fit, so strong, so fast, and they're pushing, 90+% of their max heart rate for over an hour. So
yeah, it's impressive on that level.
Yeah, you got to give it to them.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. It's and I think one thing about Hyrox is that because it's the same every time, argue either way, argue constantly varied and how good that is, and we can and we will, and we'll visit it over and over and over. But people have something to train for, and that some people need that. Some people like training for the unknown.
Yeah, when you're there, and I've worked with a guy through a number of these, like the event itself stays the same in terms of how it flows, and it's nice for them to be able to see some progress.
Yeah.
The changes happen with how it's laid out, and so there's a little bit of change with it. But what it does allow you to do is every time you go to it, you're going to change your tactics a little bit, whether or not you are going to try run faster. And for some people, it's, as Toby said, he's spot on where it's low skill. It's easy. It's an easy goal for people to chase.
Yeah. I think the barrier to entry is nice and low.
Yeah, I mean, there were guys there who looked like they hadn't done any real. They wouldn't go anywhere near a CrossFit competition.
Yeah.
Yet they were out there either walking or a very slow run, but they were just happy to be there. And the nice thing as well, you could do it in pairs. So when you're running around the track, you're not on your own. So it was really, they were, like I said, really cool, because there's definitely people there who I don't think you'd see in any other fitness competition. And it got them to do that.
What would make you do it, Toby?
Money? No. What would make me do it? Anything, really.
Because you're a decent runner, right?
I'm okay. I dabble. I mean, it depends what decent is, right, on the spectrum. So those guys are the top athletes are running 3:30 and below for the kilometers for 8K in between stations, which arguably makes it worse, right? Because you're building a bit of pre-fatigue on the sled, the pulls, the
slow,
broad jumps.
guys. Relax a bit, right?
So it'd be tough. I'm kind of using it as an excuse that I need to focus on my CrossFit, but
one day.
Yeah, one day for sure. It looks like a fun event. It looks like the crowd's always lively, and the competition, regardless of what background they're from, endurance, CrossFit, whatever, they're fit people.
So it's a good standard. We got a bit sidetracked, mate, by your good comment about Hyrox. Welcome to the team. Everybody, this is Toby. He is, we can say you're exceptionally good at CrossFit, mate. Your goal is to go to the CrossFit Games, and would you say things are on track? Yeah,
it's a long process, right? It's the opposite to Hyrox in the sense of you have no idea how you're going to qualify each year and what that process is going to look like at the moment. So, you can have athletes that are at that games level for 10 years and might not ever qualify. And then you can have some athletes, it's their first year at that level and they're punching their ticket. So it's an interesting sport to be part of. You can't get too held up on how far you get each season. You just need to know that you're still progressing. So we're on track, but still a long way, or still things we can definitely improve on.
I wonder how many people fall into that category that you just mentioned, that for literally a number of years have always tried to qualify and been a few places short, and then they've restructured the system, and then they've traveled here and they've tried to get in through a sanctioned event, which was big a few years ago, and they've literally committed maybe a decade of their life to getting in and haven't.
We spoke about a couple of them, I think, last season, where there were guys who normally would be qualifying. They would finish like one or two places out from going to the games.
Yeah.
And then they qualified, and a handful of those individuals failed their drug tests.
Oh, yeah.
We spoke about those there, and it's literally, it's just that extra little push that they needed to get there, because as Toby said, you work for 10 years trying to get it.
It's brutal.
Yeah. And listening to Toby describe what goes into it and what you're trying to achieve, so much of it is almost out of your control. The work and that sort of stuff isn't, but the workouts you get kind of are. It's like each season's kind of, you just get battered, just trying to make it there. It's pretty brutal.
It is. And a big element, which is obviously our focus topic today, is how strong people are. And that's something that within CrossFit has, like, if you take what the max weights that were being lifted in 2007, 2008, compared to now, it is absolutely incredible. I should have been a little bit more prepared. Maybe you guys can help me out here, but probably not. Like, if you look at some of the when it was at Aromas and some of the movements, and then what we're testing now is what sort of increases have we seen? Throw around some figures, at least make some up, guys.
I wouldn't know exactly what year it is, but I know at Aromas they had a 1RM snatch event.
That's it.
And that 1RM snatch event, one of the top weights was 225. So 102 kilos.
102 kilos.
This year in the Open, the third workout of the Open, which is meant to be a regional, international community sport event, get people involved. We had snatches at 225 pounds, 102 kilos. So we've gone from the top of the sport now being a community entry level event.
And what was and you see it at the games.
It's insane, right?
Bullshit, isn't it?
How's that happening?
It's so good.
Yeah.
You look at the CrossFit Games, what was it, workout 8 or 9 when they do the one rep maxes?
Yeah.
Wasn't there 140 or 145 kilo snatch? And then the same bloke nearly hit I just remember it in pounds, but a 400 pound clean and jerk.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had the total this year. You're looking at totals over 300 kilos to be anywhere near.
What's the total, mate?
A total is a combination weight lifted in your snatch and your clean and jerk. So one of the events this year was max snatch, max clean and jerk. So if you want to be in a shout or even probably qualify for the games, you need to, 300 kilos is a lot. That's about 130 snatch, 170 kilo clean and jerk, which is for a CrossFitter, you're up there with top of the sport if you're fit.
Yeah.
But to be competitive at that games level this year, you needed to be hitting that 300 kilo total.
How far off that are you?
I can do that. Yeah, that's all right.
One of the points that I didn't send to you guys on the show notes was max lift. So Andy, where are you on that? Because we're a bit older, mate, we can give maybe our all time or maybe put another lift in there as well.
Mate, I don't think my all time gets anywhere close near to Toby. I mean,
that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as the sport has evolved and you get into it and you become a little bit more professional, that ability to start well on a strength base, learn to move a barbell well, and to lift heavy has become a huge element.
Yeah.
To have any hope of placing anywhere near the games, you need to be snatching at least 120 kilos. And clean and jerk. Well, I mean, I'm not sure so much about the jerk, but at least cleaning 150 on a bad day.
And the rest, yeah.
Yeah, it's just,
for sure.
They've just gone another level.
So let's turn it back a little bit, because we're going to try and explain later how they've got there.
Yeah.
But in its very essence, maybe one of you, what is strength?
So simply put, I mean, in terms of what X, Y, and Z is, strength is just basically the ability to produce force.
Right.
So we're looking at force as mass times acceleration. So how quickly I can move an object, basically. So,
mate, if you don't make it to the games, you make it as a sports scientist. That's a very good description, because that's the purest description of strength. I mean, it's
I mean, I was just going to go with lift heavy shit, but that's much better.
Yeah, it's like, how much can you lift? Yeah, just go through that again, mate.
Yeah, so
say it again, because I think it's quite important that people actually understand what we're trying to achieve there.
So there's strength kind of gets blurred with a lot of different elements, but the purest form, as we've kind of spoken about, is simply work being done. So strength can be seen as work being done, which is relative to force. Force can be seen as the sum of mass times acceleration. So how heavy an object is and how quickly that object is accelerating. Okay, so then we can go into the nitty gritty of power and force velocity and moment arms and torques, all this kind of stuff. But stripping it right back, force equals mass times acceleration, and that can be used as a unit of strength.
And seeing as your Instagram is Stronger with Andy, I'm sure you have, or your new Instagram is Stronger with Andy, I'm sure you have a definition or a take on what strength is, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose Toby's stripped back every layer and given us the ultimate description there on it. But, you know, when I talk to sort of some of the clients about it and sort of anyone, it's basically just lifting heavy objects. When we do sort of the strong training on Sundays, that's lift heavy objects fast.
Right.
So it's kind of along the same descriptions of what Toby's talking about there. And, you know, people get confused when we talk about strength, that they look at what Toby's maybe lifting and then what they're lifting and like, well, I'm not strong. But strong is all relative.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people need to remember that stuff, is that as long as you're pushing those boundaries, and we'll talk a little bit later when we get to the training protocols for it, but as long as you're lifting that stuff that's towards maximal efforts for you, then we're starting to get towards the area where you're going to be building strength. Right. But again, there's so much that you can go into it, where it's sort of pure strength, or we're going strength endurance, or some of the stuff we're going to chat a little bit later on. But real simple, it's just lift heavy objects as quick as you can. Which
I think something that's important there, mate, is away from the competitive side, is what you're talking about is those heavy objects proportionate to either your body weight or how you interpret and how you measure that object. And it doesn't really matter if that object is heavy today or yesterday. It's just in that moment, you want to feel like you're overloading your body, your central nervous system, your mind, your everything. And then we will start to see some form of adaptation and some form of strength gains.
Yeah, I suppose it's kind of, you want to go the route where, say we go to the snatch. Snatching 70 kilos, for me, I'm in my comfort zone.
Right.
If I stay there, I'm never really going to develop too much strength on that. But I suddenly push that and spend a bit more time at the 95% mark, and then play around with how I'm lifting. That makes that bar feel 105% now. Then I'm going to be starting to sort of work on that strength element. So it's kind of pushing people outside of what they would traditionally use, so that they're challenging themselves every single day just to be that little bit better and to work on building that then.
My definition of strength varies from both of you.
No comment.
Which isn't surprising. I think obviously Toby's nailed us with the textbook, so this is not about. But I think if I was to define strength, it would be more to be constantly adapting so that life becomes easier.
Yeah.
Which is probably a little bit more trying to be philosophical, whereas I'm not at all.
It does, when we talk about strength, it does kind of go down that route a little bit, because ultimately, like Toby's a little bit different at the moment with his strength training, but probably certainly where I'm getting at and where a lot of my clients are is, why are they wanting to get stronger? So like 100%, that also is just sort of same
let's
route.
go into that, mate. Good segue. You must have read the show notes. What are the benefits of being stronger then, fellas? Like why should we? You've spoken about some interesting stuff there, Andy, 75%, 95%, which might mean something. Toby, you've spoken about being able to combine the clean and jerk and the snatch and lift 300 kilos. You have an out and out benefit to doing that, but which is it progresses your athletic goals. Aside from that, what are some of the benefits? Why should people be focusing on some form of strength program?
Yeah, so we can look at kind of two sides of the coin here. Firstly, you have the acute benefits, so the immediate benefits, right? If we're stronger, we can lift this amount of weight, we can move this fast, we can lift this shopping bag, okay? Which is all great in the moment, but actually the true kind of beauty of strength training is the chronic benefits of it, okay? So you're looking at improved joint health and strength, improved muscular tendon strength and capacity, as well as loading ability. Reduction of chronic health conditions, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, all this kind of thing, where there's huge links in studies to strength training and reducing the likelihood or even the severity of these conditions.
And I think that if you are listening, I hope you listen to that bit, and it's probably worth rewinding what Toby just said there. We've spoken for the last sort of 10 to 15 minutes about how strong this guy is, how he wants to go to Olympic Games. Andy likes to pick up heavy shits from his dogs. But the actual benefit to an enjoyable life free of pain, for me, probably because I'm a little bit older as well, far outstrip everything else. By doing strength training, where life actually becomes a lot easier. And you said something quite good there as well, mate. Like, yeah, being able to lift a shopping bag is good too. But joint health, the amount of people that have joint pain as they age, the amount of people that have heart problems as they age, the amount of people that have chronic disease as they age, which, yes, there is a massive impact through poor diet and poor environment, but a third factor, which is thankfully increasingly spoken about these days. I was listening to a show the other day. Rhonda Patrick was on Cam Hines.
Yeah.
Haynes,
I think, yeah.
He's an animal, right?
Yeah.
What's his show? No one cares, work harder, or
some kind of hiking, hunting, eating.
Yeah, he likes to kill things.
Yeah.
But I mean, she spoke very well about it as well. And she spoke a lot about what you just said there, mate. And I think it's all a lot of what the media puts out and what people think about. And sadly, and we don't have a female here to defend them, but I'm not going to really attack them. The fact that, ladies are like, I'll get bulky. We actually have guys now that say, I don't want to get bulky, right? So it's not really a sexist thing at all. Like, that's one of the potential outcomes that I think I see probably in about less than 5% of people that participate in a strength training program. And you've also got guys like us, spent a long part of my life trying to get bulkier and never actually did. But those sort of health benefits and living a healthier, happier, and almost more functional life is really key. Mate, you're nailing this. Have you done a podcast before?
No. Well, maybe. Dabbled.
Have you got your own show?
No. So, I mean, going back to that, right? I mean, looking at the benefits or the life or the chronic, where X, Y, and Z leads us, it's basically at some day you're going to sit in a chair and you're not going to be able to get out of it, right? So, assuming person X and person Y have the same lifestyle, same everything, okay, and one of them has more muscle mass than the other, they're just going to push that needle a bit further back by a few years. So muscle retention is huge and is key for especially the aging population.
I think he's talking about us.
He's looking straight at you, man.
You can take.
You have a lot more grey hair than me.
And you can take two people who on the outside they look exactly the same,
but
on the inside their body composition, their muscle mass is a totally different profile. So again, we're assuming a lot here, assuming that there are other health metrics and lifestyle and stress is all the same. But as a general point of view, more is more when it comes to muscle mass.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? I mean, you see it with, I think it's because it's law now to put the effects of smoking on cigarette packets. It'd be good to do what you just said there, mate, to take two people and to actually just visually display, you probably can get it somewhere, but to visually display the difference in our insides to someone who's participated in a strength program for a number of years and to someone who hasn't. And not everyone wants to live forever, I think, and I think that's kind of okay, but I think no one wants to live in pain or discomfort. So strength training, one of the biggest benefits where we're at, point one, is for life and for living a pain-free life, no matter what it looks like. Benefit number one is you need to be stronger, and that's the number one benefit. What else have we got when it comes to benefits of being stronger?
I mean, we've seen it here with quite a lot of people, and I see it with quite a lot of the guys that I work with, but stress reduction to a point and confidence. because that comes with one, especially when you start to lift and you see those results, you see things changing, it makes you feel like you're achieving stuff. But then the other side of it is that when they're not battering their body every single week because they're doing too much high intensity stuff and they've actually pulled that back a little bit and pushing the needle the other way, as Toby spoke about, suddenly they start to see changes in their body. And, they get into sort of 40, 45, and suddenly they start to see their biceps. Or I had a client last week who we did his in-body, and although his fat percentage has increased a little bit, he's 10 years older than when he first joined InnerFight. But in the last sort of year...
You say that again, mate?
10 years.
He's only been here 10 years.
Only been here 10 years. But he's increased his muscle mass as he's getting older.
Yeah.
Which is great. And he goes on holiday and he feels confident to be out. Yeah. And that is almost priceless for these guys because, if they're doing that, they'll get the same benefits as Toby said about looking after their joints, living longer, but then they're also happy. And, it just gives them even more reason to be coming into the gym and training.
You touched on it a little bit there, mate. Instead of people smashing themselves, they're actually doing some strength training. We see it a lot, and maybe also around this time of year, if people have dabbled too much during the summer period, they're on a cardio binge, which is pretty rough and makes them just feel drained the whole time, especially because it is still quite hot. Where people get a lot wrong is that they don't mix in enough strength training to impact weight loss. Who wants to take this one on, Mr. Notes over there?
Yeah, so impacts of kind of strength training on weight loss, or rephrase that as metabolism, basically. So the greater muscle mass you kind of hold, the greater your basal metabolic rate will be. The main kind of driving force for that is your increase in calories burned through NEAT, so non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So basically how your body maintains its state of homeostasis, so keeps it as a functioning system. The more muscle mass we have, the more energy that's actually going to take on our system to maintain the muscle mass, as well as recover from our muscle mass. So as well as other contributing factors, heat regulation, blah, blah, blah. We could all go into it. But basically what we're saying here is the more muscle mass we have on our system, the greater our basal metabolic rate will be. So when we're looking at weight loss journeys, all these kind of things, people want to lose weight when actually perhaps a healthier approach would be gain muscle mass to then lose some excess fat. It's the long game, right? That is a long game to take. It's not easy to gain muscle mass, but it's definitely possible.
As I was going to say, we could get into muscle mass gain strategies, and maybe we shouldn't. But I think one of the key things to what you said there, mate, is more actually stimulating the muscle you've got. It's not always about gaining more muscle to increase that basal metabolic rate, which, guys, is all about your calories. And if you're on calories in, calories out, you need to call us. But it's more making that muscle that you not losing it, which is what we see a lot when people go down a cardio or more cardio based or just flogging themselves. They actually burn off the muscle, which is actually punching up that metabolic rate. So rather than it is super hard. The reason why I won't go deep into gaining muscle is because it's insanely hard and it's insanely slow. And most people don't really need any more muscle than what they have. They just need to get rid of the fat so they can see the muscle they have and make the muscle they have stronger, hence do some strength training. But the impact of being strong and doing strength training on weight loss due to what Toby said is absolutely key. Yeah. And it's probably one of the reasons why we see an increasing number of people that train quite hard and look an absolute mess still.
Yeah.
True. I think it's true.
I mean, I feel like I have a couple of case studies for this through the summer where guys have gone away and they're away from our gym. They've literally just had strength training to do.
Yeah, right.
And they've come back, they've lost body fat. They aren't eating as much. And part of that is, I think Toby was kind of going down that route, is that especially when you do strength training versus the cardio, the after effect of that strength training is you're kind of burning calories for a longer period. And I've certainly found that, when I finish like a leg day and we've gone super heavy, Toby knows about this as well. My guys on a Friday know about this, is that they've had their breakfast, it gets to midday and they're like ravenous. We've basically just smashed one of the biggest muscles in their body. But like coming back to the point about the guys being away, they've literally just stripped back their cardio and done strength training. And while their muscle mass has changed ever so slightly, the point you're making there is their body fat has dropped. So suddenly the changes look insane.
Yeah.
Because their metrics have gone the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And then what they get slightly confused about is they've had to do, essentially, they feel like they've done less work, but they haven't.
And that also segues into sort of measures, right? Because people in that area are measuring, if I don't sweat a lot, if I don't have my heart rate, if you lift enough weight, your heart rate will go pretty high anyway, right or wrong. Like, how high is your heart rate when you're snatching 130 kilos? Like, it's pretty high. You need everything. But people, the perception of what a hard workout is not quite what it really is.
No, it isn't. And I suppose, I think I may have mentioned this to Toby over the summer, but because I had people away, I took time to spend some time. I did nothing CrossFit, no cardio. I trained 2 hours at a time doing strength training. Yeah. And fuck me, when you get to like fourth or fifth set in. He's happy with it, isn't he? Fourth or fifth set in, and you know how much this is going to hurt to have to shift that weight. Yeah. Oh, it's brutal. And if anyone says to me strength training is not...
Can you verify that he was actually doing some lifting whilst I was away, Toby?
I've heard some rumours. I'm not seeing him.
We'll check the CCTV.
They were sort of with little weights. Sandra was there. Rachel was probably there as well. But if anyone says strength training isn't hard, and I've watched when Toby trains as well, as it is, not just physically, but mentally it's hard. Like the amount of focus that you have to put in is, it's hard.
How should people measure it then? Coming on to that, if people are, people like metrics, people like progress. You said at the start, Andy, if you can pick something heavy up, then that's good. Toby, you're focusing quite rightly on a specific number, or if and it's right. You want to run the marathon at the Olympics. You need to run around the 2 hour mark. You want to go to the Olympics of CrossFit. You know what you need to do. Where's the middle line here? Like, if someone's like, yeah, but I don't know how to, how do I measure my progress? What's the general population answer to that?
I suppose what you just said there, the general population answer to it is, for me, if I'm, if we're in a class and say coaches said we're going to be doing 8 reps and we're looking to build some strength on it, I kind of want to be towards that end range, pretty close to failing. If I'm looking at telling people we're trying to push themselves outside of a comfort zone. I think if it goes slightly beyond that, where we have people who know their numbers and they can start working on percentages and they track that sort of stuff, it becomes a lot easier to manage that. And that probably then extends to sort of where, Toby is with his training, and where we start to go towards the athletes, where they have to be quite focused on numbers almost when they're chasing that strength.
Yeah, definitely. So again, touching on what you said, right? So we can kind of compare our progression in strength to two sides of a coin again. So one would be relative to your own body weight, right? So a consistent mass in that sense. So we can, on the endurance side of this gym, we can compare that to perhaps peak watts per kilo they can produce on a bike, right? We know that they're in a stronger position than they were 6 weeks ago if they can increase their watts per kilo for just a peak measurement. So let's say a 7-second sprint. Going more on the CrossFit side relative to body weight, let's take an example like a pull-up. Okay, so you're looking at your max strict pull-up, for example. So this might not even be body weight for a lot of people. It might be with a band, it might be band assisted. So you can measure that through how many bands we're using, what color band, whether we're using dumbbells, kettlebells, or anything like that. So that's from a body weight perspective. And then the second way we can look at it is a metric relative to an external force. So then you're looking at your more traditional strength training techniques, for your maximal strength, like your maximal strength, like a squat or a deadlift or a bench press, and then as well as some more dynamic strength numbers, maybe like a snatch or a clean and jerk.
Yeah. So I think with what Toby's sort of described there is ideally how we'd like every person to kind of work, right? And I think sometimes what we find, especially when we've got people doing so much or when they're coming in, is some days they're not quite at 100%.
Yeah.
So when we start chasing them towards those numbers, the little reminder needs to be as if you're sort of pushing that boundary and mentally you don't have another rep in you, I think you're always going to be heading towards that same route that Toby's talking about where we chase numbers. That as long as it's pushing outside of that comfort zone. I know that's wishy-washy when we talk about what metrics.
I don't think it is though, mate. I think it's actually super important in that if someone's had a disproportionate amount of external stress, so not training related stress, their central nervous system will still be in a state of stress.
Yeah.
So if they come into the gym and they're only chasing a number, they're thinking about his 130 kilo snatch, or let's just take
140, sorry.
Sorry, mate. That means your clean and jerk's not big enough. We need to work on it.
Yeah. Don't get me started.
Sorry, mate.
Is that the case? Is your snatch better than your clean and jerk relatively?
Yeah,
Is
much
it?
better, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
At least we cleaned that up. I won't make that mistake again. But if you take a back squat for a guy that's around the 100 kilo mark, if you know that you can do 100 kilos for about 3 reps, if you've had a disproportionately stressful time at home, at work, or a travel schedule, which is quite common in the region, then if you come in that day and you can't lift that 100 kilos for 3 reps, but you feel like you've put absolutely all of your energy into it and you've lifted 90 kilos for 3 reps, that's an awesome measure.
Yeah.
So we're mixing sort of subjectiveness, we're mixing the feelings with the actual numbers. That's why I think it's super important that people know about what they can lift, and also what I think both of you have said, how close am I to failure? And I think that's what I use for a lot of people. If I want you to do 8 reps, I want you to get to 6 and think, fuck, I really need to work hard to get these last 2. And if you approach we spoke about it in our programming meeting earlier, we're not actually using which we'll talk about in a second, there's various different strength protocols that if they're done with focus and almost in isolation, more scientifically through a period of time, will produce results. We can't do that here because we're playing with so many different external factors. But if every time you come in and that's why in the programming it's written heavy as fuck, because that's what it needs to be on that particular day. And then we'll also have times, and we've done this in the weightlifting, where, okay, we're reducing your rest, we're reducing the reps, so we're reducing the weight because we want to work on it technically. So if you have that awareness around, okay, I know that for 3 I can lift about 100. Some days you might have slept really well, low work stress, low home stress, and that might be 105. But it doesn't mean just because you've had a hard time at work that you should be lifting the 100. You might be able to hit 90 or 95. And if that felt fucking heavy, then that's excellent, because that feeling of it being fucking heavy creates a mental, likes my use of my explanation here.
You're going to have to get used to that.
But that's the thing, that creates the adaptation, because your brain is telling your body, this is really fucking heavy, I need to react. And that then carries on after the session as well, which I think is what a lot of people get wrong. If I didn't hit the 100, I haven't got stronger today. If you only hit 90, but all the signals from your brain to your body is, I'm going to get crushed under this, but I can make it, and you get through, you still get the adaptation.
Yeah, I mean,
rant over.
I think this is probably going to jump to the next section where we talk about what we do here.
Yeah.
But I think maybe it was Toby I was talking to you. I was talking to you about it, I think, yesterday, where we see people, and if you're one of the people who does 2 sessions back to back, you're going to understand why. is where you have a strength piece, or you're doing some workout and then trying to come do a strength piece. You're not going to be working where we're talking about in that area where you're going to be developing any strength. All you're doing is just doing more work. I honestly think with what we do here, because of the amount of, I suppose, options we give people to build strength, while we don't necessarily give them something that's going to take them towards the games, what we do give them is, and Toby alluded to this earlier, is we give them functional strength, stuff that allows them to pick up a shopping bag, or to pick up their kid, or to put an object overhead. So while we don't necessarily create athletes, we do help people get stronger for life.
Yeah, which I think is super important, right? I remember I was doing a talk about 10 years ago in the corporate setting to a group, and I asked them what's strength, what's fitness, and one guy said, I have a 3-year-old daughter, and every time I go home, she runs up to me and I lift her up and I give her a hug. I'm like, where's this going? And he's like, one day she's going to be 18. I'm like, where's this going?
Her daughter's Milos's horse.
Literally, mate. And honestly, he said, I would just love for her to run to me and for me to pick her up and hug her. And literally the whole room just went silent. Yeah. One chick's like starting to cry. And I was like, fuck, that's where this guy's going. Like, that's amazing. Yeah. Like, that really is amazing. And, you know, I mean, Dubai's terrible for it, but like, who the fuck are you to try and get someone to carry your groceries to your car for you? Are you so shit or so weak? Do you know what I mean? I'm like, no. And it's not a service that you should pay for. Yeah. Like, you walk into Dubai airport and these concierge guys, there's like 50 each side. It's like they're going to have a scrum against each other or something. You know, and I'll pay them 50 dirhams because I'm weak as piss. You know, it's like it's like a sign next to you. Yeah. I'm fucking weak. He's carrying my shit. You know?
Definitely right. And I mean, we've touched on this everywhere. Strength is both relative to the person, relative to what they even want in life, you know? Yeah. It might seem they want to get strong, but how strong do they actually want to get? The other side of that is strength is both situational too. So there's, again, loads of studies on this. You have some people, their child will be under a car, they can miraculously lift the car. You give them that car in any other situation, no chance. They're not even getting it. They're not even moving it. Yeah. So again, the buy-in from what we need to coaches is A, to highlight the importance of strength, and B, to make it applicable to someone, you know? Yeah. Speaking to my grandma about strength and how she needs to get strong on paper isn't going to work, you know? But talking about, okay, well, we actually could extend your discrepancy wouldn't be maybe the nicest way to go about it, but it's going to be effective, right? You need to make it applicable to someone. So whether that's someone wanting to hug their 18-year-old daughter, or whether that's someone wanting to be able to take their shopping bags in. And so it's super important as coaches and both people, we know the why behind why we're trying to get strong.
I like the way you've put it, mate. And it sort of brings it round to a more holistic, like, we're not making you do a back squat because we really want you to get a big back squat or a split lunge. But we know that if you do that split lunge or that back squat, exactly what you just said, like, you'll have a better quality of life. You'll be able to run and hug your daughter. You'll be able to do all these things. And I think and I don't want you to get out of competition mode, but once you do get out of competition mode, those things become more important, you know, and I see it now with my mum. My mum, you know, she's done some form of strength training, and my dad, her whole life, you know, and that's why she's got to where she's got to, you know, and I think and they're not, my dad tells me he's not in pain, but I think he is now. But I think he just doesn't want to tell me he's in pain. But, you know, he's like 76 and he still goes to the gym. You've seen him in the gym, Andy, relax. You know, and they do it. And that holisticness, so when you're under the bar or when you've got those dumbbells and you're doing that split lunge, think a lot bigger is the sort of message that you put there, Toby. Think a lot bigger than what really is just happening there. And in that moment, that 5 kilos from 95 to 100 actually means not really that much. 95 will still get you those massive gains. We spoke a little bit about different and we don't have a whole heap of time for these, but so I want to frame it in a different way. What is the best strength protocol that you have followed? And the reason for it being the best is because it got you increases that you were chasing.
I'd say my own.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah. Well, mate, if you wrote one, yeah.
No, mate. I wouldn't say I've written one. I wouldn't say, it's hard to say whether or not I've found one to be better than the other. What I've tended to do is I will spend, I think the shortest time I've ever spent on one is 12 weeks.
Right.
But I will tend to spend a 12-week block on one, and then I'll change it up. And I change it up so that my body doesn't adapt to what I'm doing. Although I'm constantly trying to lift heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But I suppose also in what I do, because of the clients that I work with, I need to be able to offer them programs and use some of these methods that suit their lifestyle. So I've always found the best way to play around with them is to do them. I absolutely love, although it's more hypertrophy, is German volume. Oh,
you don't like your tendons.
No. But I think the one that I've had the most benefit from was the simple, I think it's termed strong lifts, but it's 5x5. Yeah. And every week is just adding a little bit of weight. Or what I started to play around with that was play around with my reps. So keep the weight the same and then start to play around with increase that rep to maybe 6 or 7.
So it's no longer 5x5.
No, it doesn't become 5x5.
Rebel. Toby, what have you used?
Good question. So I could talk all day about this. So, so really, what it comes down to, regardless of kind of the strength training method. So personally, I break these down into 3. So you have neurological, neuromuscular, and muscular. So it's all kind of a spectrum. So neurological, you're working on purely the neural system and how that fires and connects with your muscular system. Neuromuscular is somewhere in between, and muscular is going to be purely focused on kind of your hypertrophy, your GVT, all that kind of stuff. But regardless of what protocol or method you want to do, it all evolves around progression and overload. So regardless of what method we choose, GVT, 5x5, hack squat, whatever it is, okay, it all comes down to just
Hack squat.
To just progressing.
Have you done that?
Yeah.
It's old school.
All of them.
So which was your favorite then? So
Toby needs to carry on because he's saying something useful. I won't say something as useful.
You know, for me personally, any kind of deadlift cycle has been super valuable. It's great compound lift, posterior focused, big neural drive, and it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It doesn't have to be crazy amounts of volume, crazy weights, just good mechanics and good consistency progressing over time, for sure.
I would tend to agree with you, mate, that I was just looking for it. The guys on the endurance podcast, I don't know which one it was. I listened to it a few weeks ago. They did a show on, it must have been ages ago. They did a show on strength and for endurance guys. And it's quite interesting because it's different. You want to have a total of over 300. We just want endurance athletes to start doing some strength training protocols. But from what I've seen is exactly what you said, progressive overload, that's all. So so long as you are creating that within a program, I think most of it, you could argue, like you said, but do you do 5x5? Why 5x5? Why not 6x6? Do you do Wendler 5-3-1? Do you do German volume training? You know, hack squat. Like, there's just so much different stuff. I mean, I'm with you. School through university, 5x5 every time.
Yeah.
One of my favorites actually is Rob Orlando taught me cold bar, which this one's good. You literally just have. So you can do it for any of the sort of, well, you can do it for anything. So you have let's take a deadlift bar set up in the gym and you just put it there at 100 kilos. And every time, like 8 times a day, you just do 1 rep once that becomes super easy, you just put like 1 kilo on and you just keep going and going and going. And it comes from an ancient sort of, well, this is how he explained it to me, that about a guy jumping out of a hole. Have you heard this? So this guy was digging a hole and he'd dig it so deep today and then he'd hop out and then he'd hop out tomorrow. I think that's nonsense. But, and he could constantly keep digging the hole and he could hop out. But Rob's done that with himself and with a lot of people. And I did it once for bench press and it did actually work.
Yeah.
Over like but it's over time as well, which I think is what you mentioned. So you've got progression and overload through a long period of time. The most rank one I've ever done is, I'll have to have a look at it. You back squat or front squat and you basically max out every day for 14 days. It's horrible.
Sounds Bulgarian or something.
I think it was something like that, mate. And
some Eastern Bloc country.
Most of the good ones are, right?
Yeah.
You know, and those guys are
good pharmaceuticals.
good pharmacy. That's the thing. But yeah, I think that's really the key is progression and just making sure there is some sort of overload. Let's wrap it up with a couple of things. You guys both run different programs here. You've got everyone super excited. Toby, talk to us a little bit about, you run our Pure Strength program, which is another one we started in 2016 based off conjugate.
No, nice.
That's how Boz got strong.
Good job. Yeah, I mean, look at her now. She doesn't strength train, and yet she's still probably the strongest person in the room.
Insane. Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Barbell.
Yeah.
What's the guy? Louis Simmons?
Yeah.
He died.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple times. And then he's finally dead now.
Did he have a few heart attacks?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Didn't strengthen his heart arteries enough
there's
for all that gear.
There's a famous story, right? We had open heart surgery, died on the table, woke up the next day and maxed out his deadlift.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing is it on YouTube? They've got that whole story about it. He's just mental.
The young guy, he used to do some stuff in CrossFit. He was called AJ someone. There used to be a CrossFit specialty course which AJ taught.
Oh, the conjugate method.
It was the conjugate method.
Yeah,
I did
I
it.
remember that.
Yeah.
Maybe still at school, but
anyway, talk to us about still at school, mate. He hadn't started school. I have to be careful.
Okay, Pure Strength.
Yes.
Back to it. Mondays, Wednesdays, 6:30 p.m. here at InnerFight. So we run it on a B weekly schedule. So week A is pushing upper, so bench press, strict press, and then a pulling lower, so a posterior deadlift. Okay, and then week B is the opposite. So it's a pulling upper, so we're looking at strict banded pull-ups, and a pushing lower. Okay, so we're looking at box squats for that. Nice and simple, very traditional strength training techniques with rep schemes, rest times, etc. And then
we haven't even spoken about the importance of rest in strength training yet. We could go on forever.
What rest?
I mean, that's the thing. You get CrossFitters to do rest. You're like, you're going to do 3 back squats every 3 minutes, and then just sat there going, "What do I do now? What do I do now?"
Can't sit with themselves.
We need to have another fucking.
How are they taking it in Pure Strength? Are they understanding?
We have to go, you go, I go. Otherwise, there's not enough going on.
Really?
Yeah.
I generally feel like it needs to be gangster rap. Every time we used to do a lot of strength training in the old gym, it's gangster rap on, pretty loud, and just head bob, like nothing else, like for 3 minutes, and then
you know what you need to do. You don't want to be with your own thoughts too long. You need some distractions. You know?
But the thing is as well, man, and you're probably a good testament to this. If you're lifting heavy, no matter if it's heavy for you or if it's heavy for me or if it's heavy for my mum, if it's what those reps and sets are, you need that rest. Otherwise, if you're able to go, if it's on 4 minutes, if you're able to go at 2 minutes, it's probably not heavy enough, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that people could take into any strength environment. Like, it's probably not heavy enough. If the rest says 3 minutes and you're ready to go after a minute, it's not heavy enough. Sorry, Matt, I interrupt. Pure Strength.
Pure Strength, Monday, Wednesday, 6:30 p.m.
Got it.
Upper, lower each week, alternate between posterior and anterior. Nice and simple. entry level for anyone, or if you're a top athlete, we can still progress you, no doubt.
Were you looking at me, not Andy?
Either or. Either or.
I think he's just picking. I feel like we've been in a lecture for the last hour anyway.
Andy, aside from your Instagram account, do you offer anything strength?
No.
Oh, good.
So Sundays I run Strong Train, which a little less sort of science-based. We just pick up odd objects that are relatively heavy. We move them super quickly and we have a good time.
You can't call Kareem an odd object, mate. That's
No, we roll them. I just wanted to touch on something that's super cool about Toby's program and why I actually think more people need to be doing it is what he does well with it. And it's something we've kind of missed as we've gone through this is the weekly exposure to those lifts, which is incredibly important because in order to create that strength, particularly when we look at push and pulls, is doing it once and then not doing it for another 10, 15 days isn't really going to help generate any strength.
Yeah.
So the nice thing with what we offer there is that you know when it is, he has a program set out for it. And I recommend it to a lot of my guys who want to come in and do a strength class is I've watched it grow sort of over the last 6 weeks. And not only are people lifting heavier, but the confidence it then brings when they come into a mainline class with what they need to be lifting is starting to pay off as well.
Nice.
Numbers are creeping up. It's good to see.
Any final thoughts, Toby? What notes haven't we covered? This guy's got a whole thing of notes. He should definitely be a journalist.
He started making some notes as well. So maybe we said something that he's
we sparked some thought for you, mate.
We have so many options here at InnerFight. We're blessed for strength training, right? So I'm just listing them off. We have Strongman, which with Zandy. We have Pure Strength myself. We have Build with Milosh. We have
Build.
Lady Strength Club, Strength Endurance, one-to-one coaching, whatever it is. So you can't go too wrong here, and that's the beauty of strength training, right? Whether you're a farmer who's never been to a gym, he's going to be strong because he's lifting something all day for 40 years.
I would also chuck in one more, and this was on sort of my notes to do. And Toby is actually a really good example of this, and so is Milosh, is the mobility side of things. Like 100%.
Listen to those boys' podcast. Number one, they said there's 4 key elements to strength. Number one is movement mobility.
Yeah. Like, I mean, Toby is a big guy, and for a big guy, moves really well. Milosh moves incredibly well. And people forget that when you look at mobility, it's the combination of strength and flexibility. Sorry.
Me?
No, you move better than I do. I'm not going to complain.
No, it's very true, mate.
But I think
loading a poor position is horrendous.
Yeah. So, and Toby's hit nail on the head is that there's something for everyone here if they want to get stronger. They just have to work.
Thank you very much. As Toby said, plenty of different options. And I think that's probably what you can take from the show. There are a number of different ways to build the strength. And quite fortunately, there are a number of different experts in the building that train in those different ways and train people in those different ways. If you would like to know my way of building strength, I can take you to the desert. Thanks a lot for listening.